Good morning, it is Vlogmas Day 2 and we are going through all of the books that I read in November today. I read 11 books this month, which I feel like is pretty decent. I really didn't think I would get to that many. I think I'm gonna give credit to two reasons for that. One, I had to read some books for a panel that I was chairing at YALC at the start of the month, and that was 4 books, and I knew I needed to read those in November. And two, I am currently filming a themed reading vlog that is going to become very clear when you see some of the books that I'm wrapping up, and I have read 4 out of the 5 books that I'm going to read for that vlog in November. I'm not going to be talking about those 4 books because I don't want to spoil any of my thoughts for the actual video, so I'll just kind of skirt over those, I suppose. I'll show you, but skirt over. So out of the 11 books, we're going to be talking about 7 of them. Also, it is really cold out today. Like, I think it's about -1, so it's an hoodie day today. I am so thankful for this right now because it is immediate warmth. So this is the vibe right now. If you watched my October wrap up, I gave honorary mention to this book because I nearly finished it in October, but I didn't quite. This is All Hallows by Christopher Golden. This is set on Halloween night and is following multiple different families as some very strange things are happening with these children that have started appearing around this neighborhood. This was just the perfect Halloween vibes. I would highly advise reading this around Halloween. It's just immaculate vibes. It definitely had occasional creepy parts, but it wasn't a book that scared me, and if you saw any of my October content, you'll know that I was searching for a book to give me the fear. I didn't really achieve this, but this was a really good atmospheric one, and I really loved everything about the vibes and the atmosphere. I liked learning about these different characters and the different problems that they were facing on this night. It did at times feel like a little bit lost because there were so many different characters and I was trying to remember who everybody was and what relationship everybody had to each other, but it was a really fun, good time. I really did like this one. I would have loved to have finished this in October, but I just couldn't quite manage it, and I didn't want to feel like I was rushing it. I ended up giving this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. It didn't quite breach into the 5-star territory, but I did really like it. Then I had to read a series of dystopian books because I was chairing the Edge of Tomorrow panel at YALC. So the first one I read was The Cats We Meet Along the Way. This is by Nadia Mikhail. This is set in a world where people are aware that an asteroid is coming to hit Earth, and they have 1 year, and this is following our main character who wants to go on a journey with her partner and their families to try and find her sister who she hasn't seen for a few years. So we're seeing society knowing that this asteroid is coming to hit, and we're following our main character trying to have these moments with her family still. This is very much a story of hope that somehow these people will survive, but also of trying to have that unity of their family and be all together and the love of a family and the history that got them to this point as well. I really liked the premise of this. I think that this one actually felt pretty terrifying in the sense of the fact that, you know, knowing that they had a year until this was going to hit Earth was that's just terrifying, and seeing how different people would react to that, and just it really got in my head as to questioning how you'd respond to that. I think Nadia Mikhail did a really good job of capturing this and this eerie fear that surrounds this kind of an event. Out of the 4 that I read for this panel, this one set separately because this was before the dystopian event and was in the lead up to it, so it was quite an interesting reading experience. I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read All That's Left in the World by Eric J. Brown. This is post-pandemic to the extreme. I would say it's kind of a little zombie-esque, but not fully. There's been a huge pandemic, it has killed a lot of the population, and we're following 2 boys who are surviving separately and then meet and come together and try and survive together. This is an LGBT dystopian novel, and honestly, it was a great time. I really enjoyed this one. I listened to this as an audiobook and it just completely swept me away on the journey that these 2 boys were going on, the people they meet along the way society is broken down. I think that's what I find most interesting in dystopia books, that's looking at the way that society has changed, and having seen how people reacted to COVID, it's interesting to see how that's fueled books that have been written after COVID, because we kind of got a very small glimpse into how society changes when there is this mass thing happening. And I think that this book did a really interesting job of having those conversations, and I really enjoyed this one. I think it was really great. Having interviewed all of these 4 authors, I think has definitely given me more thought process behind the way they've written the books and everything that's gone into them, and the kind of things that come alongside writing a dystopian book, I suppose. The conversation that we had was the idea of dystopia as a cautionary tale and what it's saying about society and what it's warning us of, and I feel like all of these books have kind of captured that in some way or another. I really like this one. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Feast of Ashes by Victoria Williamson. This one was very different from the others in that this was a lot more sci-fi focused. So this is following a character who is living in this biome where this society has been established and they're surviving fine, but the whole time you know that it's counting down to the fact that she kills, hang on, it says it on the blurb, she accidentally kills 14,756 people. So it's set in a futuristic Earth in this bubble, and you don't know why this is going to happen, you don't know how, and you're getting the build up to that, and then you're getting the after of that. So I won't go into any spoilers. Like, this area that these people are in has become unlivable and they have to live in these biomes and the outside world is not safe to them. That's the kind of dystopia we're looking at here. I don't gel with sci-fi quite as much, and I didn't get on with this one quite as much for that reason, but I think this one was interesting because it was following an established society in this world. There wasn't the chaos, it wasn't this fresh thing, and then it kind of entered into a slightly chaotic society as it went further along. This was definitely interesting, and I'm saying sci-fi because that's kind of more the vibe I got, but actually saying the plot, it's definitely still very much dystopia. It just felt, I suppose, with the biomes and the atmosphere being the issue, it just felt like it had a little bit more of the science fiction element to it, but I don't really know now I'm saying it out loud. This one was good, I just didn't like it as much as the other ones. I gave it 3 out of 5. Possibly the one that I enjoyed the most was You Could Be So Lucky by Holly Bourne. This is very different to all the others. This is more of a society shift than anything else. This is following a main character who lives in a world, or 2 main characters rather, who live in a world where everything is centric around beauty and around appearance and looks. And I think this is so clever because we're following these characters at school as they essentially are getting ready for their prom. It's all kind of centric around that, but the prom is some humongous event, is highly important to the rest of their futures, and how they look for that event and how other people perceive them is something that is massively valued in this society. I found this incredibly interesting. I thought this was fascinating. This discusses porn culture really well, which was a big part of this plot. Not really something I've read about before as well, and I think tackling this in a YA and how this affects a younger audience, I think is a really interesting conversation, and when talking to Holly Bourne, you could just see the passion that she has about this. What really got me about this is obviously it's playing on something that is very much prevalent in society already, and the value on appearance and how this shifts the way that you're treated as a human being, unfortunately. And Holly Bourne has just written that in such an interesting way, and how that affects a younger generation and the fragility of all of that, and what happens as you age, and how people perceive you if you don't fit into this box that they want you to fit into, and how we should break that. And I loved that so much. I could talk about this book so much, like this could be a whole video on its own, because I just think the questions it raised around the porn culture, around the beauty industry, around social media, linked to that as well, around how we view ourselves and how other people value us. It was really, really interesting. And whilst it didn't have the big world-ending events that these other books that I've talked about had, the dystopic society was absolutely there and was very prevalent in the way that the characters were living their lives as part of this doctrine that they're in, that says they need to look a certain way, need to act a certain way, and need to respond a certain way to the way that the women need to respond a certain way to the way that men treat them and things like that. It was very interesting. Really enjoyed it. Gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Now, the series that we are not going to speak of, the Percy Jackson series, or at least the first 4 books in it. I'm currently still reading the 5th one. I am doing a reading vlog for this, if you hadn't guessed yet from my TBR, I guess, when I said I was going to be reading these in November. 1 left to read, and honestly, I will say I'm loving it. I'm loving it so much, and I'm having so much fun filming the vlog. It's been something I've been intending to do for a very long time, and I'm so glad I'm finally doing it. I'm not going to properly go into thoughts on these other than to say I'm loving them, because I don't want to ruin the vlog. So if you want to see my full thoughts on this, there will be a vlog live, I think in a couple of weeks by the time you're watching this, and I'm so excited to share it because I'm having such a good time. Then I read Devils and Saints by Jean-Baptiste André. This was recommended to me for cover to cover episode 10. So again, if you want to see my full thoughts on this, head to that episode because I go into more detail than I will in the wrap up. This is a story of initially a man that we meet who performs a piano in various different public spaces like train stations and things like that. He plays the public pianos that are available, and he is playing for a woman. And we then get the story of how he got here and who it is he's playing for. We see him as he enters life in an orphanage and everything that comes alongside that for him, and how horrible that time is for him, but also the friends that he makes and how he tries to get through that time, and his passion for music and how he tries to keep that passion whilst in this environment, and his life's completely flip-turned upside down. I didn't mean to start the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air song there. Now that's in my head. His life gets completely flipped upside down, and we are seeing that happen alongside him, and it's very emotionally raw. I enjoy books that go on a journey with our characters throughout time, and whilst this didn't kind of go throughout all his years, we see him as a child and then we see him much older as an adult, and we don't really get the in-between of that, but we do get the context of how he got to who he is as an adult, and I liked that a lot. I think this was a really beautiful journey book, and I liked what it said about music and the passion for that along the way of all this hardship as well, and I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. The final book that I read this month is Rebecca Ross's Divine Rivals. I have a reading vlog for this coming out very soon, so if you want to see my full thoughts and me finishing this book, then that will be out I think in a couple of days. There's a Vlogmas video every other day at the moment, so there's lots coming your way basically. This is a historical fantasy that is following two characters who are both journalists in the time of a fantasy war of the gods that is kind of World War inspired. It's a romance, it's got the war element, it's got the fantasy system. I would like to know more about the fantasy system, just gonna say that. I feel like it was scratching the surface of giving me enough, and I want more. We're getting backstory to the fantasy, but I want to know how the magic works here, because we just kind of get flickers of that. But these two characters are corresponding with each other via these letters, and it's a slow burn romance. It says it's enemies to lovers, but I would say it's more like slight irritants to lovers. I mean, it's rivals to lovers, really. It's just great. I just had a great time with it. I'm so glad I did, because so many people told me I would love this, and I was honestly worried the hype would get to me, but I just really liked it. I think that this did a really beautiful yet raw job of writing about the effects of the war, the emotional effects, the physical effects. It definitely made me feel pretty emotional at times, seeing people's stories and how different people were affected. I really enjoyed the journalist element. I think that was a really interesting way to go about it, because usually with this kind of thing we're seeing people that are warriors, really, and it wasn't that. It was these two journalists writing about what was happening, and I think that was a really interesting take to have about it. And I did like the romance. I don't often read books specifically for the romance. I don't mind if there is romance, but I'm not really a big specific romance reader unless it's on the odd occasion. But I did really like the romance in this, and I liked the characters a lot. I'm rooting for them. I do need book 2 now, which I don't think I have too long to wait for. I really liked it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So that was my November wrap up. I have no idea what December's gonna look like, because I'm just trying to take it easy with reading, but at the same time I'm filming so many different videos that I obviously want to be reading loads of books for those to make them interesting enough, so I don't really know what December's gonna look like. But thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're enjoying Vlogmas so far. There's lots of exciting Vlogmas videos to come. I'm so excited to share them all. It's just, I love doing Vlogmas. It's so fun. There's so much to it, so I don't do it every year because I need to balance whether I can feasibly manage the extra videos. But when I am able to do it, I just love it, because I love sharing content and I get excited, and it's every other day, so there's lots of things happening. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you so much to my patrons for your support. It means the world to me, and I wouldn't be able to do all of this without you. I am also giving my patrons a little Christmas present this month by doing way more sprints than normal, and also all the sprints are available to all tiers of my patrons, so from £1 you can join any of the sprints that I'm doing throughout December. I will leave a link down below if you would like to check it out. Usually the sprints are available to the Hobbiton tier upwards, and that will be the case after December, but just as a little December thing, they are for everybody. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next one.